Hi there, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Best Path. We're going to be talking about network observability, and we've got a couple of guests to join us today. We've got Joe Monday from NetScout. We've got Raghav Dhir from Cisco, and obviously we've got our illustrious Nicholas Bridgman in from Best Path to talk about lots more stuff over the next 40 minutes or so. So Best Path, as most of you already know, we're a professional services organisation. We specialise in people, experts and skills, but we also can bring solutions to the table and to life, I suppose, ultimately. So what I'll do now is I'll hand over to the rest of the panel to introduce himself. So you can understand a bit more about what it is, what they do, and how they are contributing to the network observability and visibility piece in the industry today. So, Joe, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, Joe Monday. So NetScout, I'm a solution architect within NetScout. I work within the global CTO team. My role pretty much covers supporting sales operations where needed, but in many cases I take those sales requirements and I funnel them back to the product management teams to make sure we're delivering what customers need. Where NetScout sit in the market, I'm sure everyone's aware of NetScout, 30 odd years worth of packet analysis, experience, making sure that people understand what's going across their network, providing visibility, and enriching people's understanding of what's happening with their applications and services. I guess in terms of observability, you can't do observability without having visibility.
Yep.
So that's where we play.
Okay, cool. And Raghav, what about yourself?
So Raghav Dhir, I'm part of the worldwide sales team at Cisco, so I support the EMEA region. So what that involves is working with partners, Cisco teams, and also directly with customers on the solutions that I focus on, which have been very much based around the data center. So, you've got the Nexus portfolio, but then over and above that, you've got the software stack, particularly ACI. You've got Nexus Dashboard, Nexus Insights. So really helping our customers and partners understand these solutions that drive visibility, conformance, and insights. But obviously, I work very closely with the larger Cisco. So, visibility, observability is a key focus area for us, particularly with things that we've been doing around App Dynamics, Thousand Eyes. We work very closely with our customers and partners to really understand those.
Fantastic. And what about yourself, Nick? I'm sure people don't want to hear about that, but
Nick Bridgman, Managing Director, Best Path. I'll try and make this stuff work and try and lead the team to make it work. But understanding customer requirements and trying to translate the requirements into a technical deliverable, get it delivered, and hopefully get some value to the customer. I think that's the plan. But working closely with vendors just to understand what features and functionality available, and try and marry it up between kind of vendors and customers.
Fantastic.
And keep everyone happy at the same time.
Yep.
Fantastic. Good news.
You make us happy.
Good.
So there we have our three panellists for the discussion today. So on the screen now, we should have a bit of an introduction slide. Just give you an overview of the session in general and everyone that's on the panel. As we go through the session, there's going to be a couple of polls issued out through the webinar platform using Slido. It'd be great if you can participate as we get there. And I suppose what we're going to be covering today as we go through the discussion is, I suppose, the importance, the challenges, and the pitfalls, I suppose, or the enablement piece on how we get started.
Yeah, I think maybe some kind of like boots on the ground perspective as well. I mean, it's a hot topic at the minute, right? The kind of observability and network visibility and so on. So I think it's nice just to make that a bit more real. I think maybe some people feel kind of confused and overwhelmed by it, and hopefully we can drag it back to things that make it tangible and easier to adopt.
Okay, fantastic. And as we get started, the Slido poll, you should have seen a QR code on the screen. If not, you can access it through the WebEx system, but you can participate on your mobile and stuff as well. So I guess the first question for you three industry experts, should we call you today? So what are the top three customer challenges that are leading to the need for visibility? And what are the technical and business outcomes seen as a result of these products and technologies? Who wants to go first?
Who
Nick
does want to go first?
That's, 2 questions there.
I'll
I want to keep it.
my 2
Keep
cents.
it live.
Yeah.
Like, give you a lot to think about.
I would say it's a topic we've covered a bit before previously in terms of like what a DC and a whole kind of ecosystem looks like today.
Yeah.
It's a lot more extended and dispersed compared to what it was a few years ago. I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Right now, we're extending what is the kind of DC location into a number of different places, whether that be public cloud or colo services or wherever it is. That kind of spider's web of infrastructure spans a lot of different environments, a lot of different constructs. So trying to unpick how an application is operating when it has components deployed in a number of different places is difficult.
Yeah. No,
So trying to stitch all of that stuff together. Customers also expect application services to be available 24/7 and consumed from any device, right? They don't just want it open during business hours. I know that sounds a bit kind of flippant, but people just want stuff available 24/7 to a high standard from any device.
Yeah. Correct.
And probably just on top of that as well, right? There's a number of different projects going on, and I think teams are looking, or companies are looking to use, dare I say it, less skilled resources to monitor and manage networks these days. Companies don't want to be paying top dollar for top engineers to run this stuff. So all of that data has to be rendered in a way that can be interpreted by anyone. Right?
Correct.
Whether that be management, right, in natural language, whatever it is, it's got to be. I'm not going to say dumbed down, but you people get the point, right? If I say dumbed down, it's got to be normalised and be rendered in a way that people can interpret, right? You can't be scratching around trying to correlate data from different components, right? It's just got to be munged together and wrapped up in a nice little bow. There you go.
Yeah.
Presented in a human consumable format.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By anyone.
But the same format regardless of where you're getting the data from.
Exactly.
Whether that's
Exactly.
cloud, on-prem. Yeah, okay.
And I think to your point, like the thing which is normalizing or that consistent thing throughout all of it is the network. Yeah, like you've got the network which is spanning across multiple environments, which is covering the bare metal, virtual, the hyperscalers as well. And I'm going to use the C word right now, but compliance is a hot topic right now. Yeah, from a perspective of we've got our apps in all of these environments, and actually we've got hardware across all of these instances. We've got security policies which are managing a myriad of these instances. How can we be absolutely certain within a heavily regulated industry, whether that's financial services, public sector, whatever it may be, is the network performing the way it should be? But actually, is it secure the way it should be? Yeah? And can we say that with absolute confidence in a simplified approach? Yeah. So that for us is something that we're seeing with all of the customers that I'm talking to
spot on.
as
Yeah.
well, yeah.
And just playing on that question, do you see those challenges more in larger customers, or do you see those across the board from
Across the board.
large right the way down to small businesses? Because
Yeah.
I think that's what we as a business see, and it'd be interesting to see if you guys see that as well.
Yeah, so I've worked in my time. I've been at Cisco for 9 years, and I've worked with some of the smallest organisations up to some of the largest enterprise, and the challenges are the same.
Yeah.
The luxury that larger organisations have is they've got additional resource, additional people, but what you then find is like different teams are using different tool sets to work on their little siloed approach, and then it becomes like a bit of a people process issue, whereby a smaller organisation would have less resource, but then they're just overwhelmed with all of that data set. So if you could almost like provide a consistent operating model, to deal with some of these challenges that we've spoken about, to really harmonise that data set in a sensible, manageable format, then that just makes absolute sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And how are you guys addressing the challenges that customers see in the industry? So I know you guys touched on a few of them when you were doing your intros and stuff. So tell the audience what sort of how you're bringing these new products or platforms to market to address these challenges that customers see.
Yeah. Okay. So Cisco, we're a networking company,
Yeah.
and everything traverses over a network. So what we've done is we've built solutions, particularly in my domain, that align to those those stacks in effect. Yeah. So the area that I'm focused on is very much around the ACI and XOS environment. So there you've got Nexus Dashboard and Nexus Dashboard Insights. And really what that allows you to do is really go in and understand what is going on in the network. So, the network historically has always been a bit of a black hole.
Yeah.
No one's really known what is going on in the environment. So whenever there's a failure, guess what? It's the network team. Because, they can't prove it, yeah? So what we're able to do with Insights is provide a meantime to innocence. Because we believe that actually if we can prove that the network is behaving the way it should be, then that's great. And we can do that absolutely with Nexus Dashboard Insights. Now, if you take that step further away, Cisco have made a huge strides in investments in the whole observability stack. So we've been doing it for a while now with App Dynamics, with what we can do around application visibility, right through to Thousand Eyes as well. And Thousand Eyes provides that observability at the internet layer. But now we've made 2 additional acquisitions, one Ascidian and the other one being Sam Knows.
Yeah.
And that extends that visibility right down to the end users that sit at home. So we're able to provide that last mile for people that are involved in hybrid work. And the Ascidian piece is very much, we're conscious around service providers as they launch 5G capabilities that they want to have the ability to scale out their services as quickly as possible. That aligns to that. So, observability, visibility is an absolute critical part of Cisco's strategy, because we want to help simplify the way that customers consume technologies.
Oh, good.
It's
What about you, Joe? Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about meantime to innocence. So we kind of we've got the same problems. Our customers have the same problems, but how do they defend themselves from a network perspective? We talk about it as meantime to knowledge and meantime to resolution. So our acronym is slightly different. And I guess you've alluded to the fact that Cisco, obviously a huge network vendor, the focus is around network sometimes. We kind of abstract from that a little. We talk about services. We talk about the applications that go across the top of the network. The network is a utility function that serves everything that goes above it. So we try and look at the services and see how they're performing, look at the application, see how they're performing. That's with NG1. And then you've got NG Pulse, which is proactively doing a kind of similar thing. But going back to your very early question around what problems are being faced in the industry and how do we look to address them? The problems really, and we see, you talked about the distributed estate. People are coming off on-prem platforms or on-prem solutions, going into hybrid. Well, that's all well and good. You talk about going into hybrid, but what are you going to do? You're migrating your services, your applications into those hybrid environments. How can you assure that they continue to work? How do you assure that they exceed the performance of your on-prem? What are you trying to achieve by that? So we try and allow people to understand how things are working beforehand, before they migrate, ensure that they understand how things are working after they migrate, and also continually check and assure that the things are continuing to work as they expect going forward in time.
You've always got this transient state, right? Whatever, where that people are migrating to or from, it's not like you just turn something off and turn something on. You go from A to B. You've always got this blurred line of where you're coming from compared to where you're trying to get to, and it's that middle bit as well. You talk about kind of things that drive requirements for this, kind of discipline, if you want to call it that, and trying to validate stuff when you're in that transient state is probably even more important than, or as important as once you get there, right? These projects take a long time to move, data center from A to B, or on-prem to public cloud, or a bit of both, or whatever it is, platform to platform. So it's, from what we see, a lot of the time, customers want assurance during that transient state as well, right? And they want it before, they want it after, but they want it in the middle as well.
And then when things go wrong, they want a platform that they understand and they can use. They can go down, delve down into the detail and start working out. And as you say, protect the network team, but ultimately try to understand how things are working or how things are not working to resolve any problems and return services to normal as quickly as possible. It's interesting you touched on cyber as well, because obviously from a packets perspective, we can cover that off quite comprehensively too. But I think with what's the other question?
You're not listening, Joe.
No.
You keep talking, Joe. Don't matter. No, I was saying, and what are the tech and business outcomes seen as a result of this of adopting visibility? Do we see benefits from it and stuff? And what do you tell people when you go in to see them? What the value of that is? Does that make sense?
It's hard to articulate the outcome to someone that hasn't been burned.
Yeah,
Right.
that is true. Yeah.
It's like trying to emphasise the importance of Joe. You and I were talking the other day, right? Trying to emphasise the value of an insurance policy if you've never needed one before, right? So I think it's different people from different kind of parts in their career will appreciate the outcomes more than others.
Correct.
I think as an outcome, we often use the term reputation. So if I am a large corporate entity, I want to ensure that my reputation is considered to be good, and that reputation is built upon the ability to trust me with someone with a customer's data set. When I go and use their services, are the services responsive? Are they available? Kind of things you touched on earlier. And we feel like with our visibility, we can help organisations provide that and protect their reputation. Which obviously leads on to margin.
Indeed.
Cool.
And likewise, exactly the same. So you mentioned the word insure and assure as well. So there's, we see a great similarity there because, with insights, what we can do is we can provide customers the confidence that before they instigate any changes, they're able to run simulations and run scenarios that they've got the confidence that, the network is ultimately going to behave the way it does and it doesn't impact their application state.
Yes, that's spot on. I think the word observability means so many different things to different people, right? And there are lots of different terms that people may not join together. You talk about kind of network assurance, right? Which is a huge part of the NI platform, right? Knowing that, an ACI fabric is programmed as it should be. It's exactly as you kind of intended. You've got no kind of outstanding issues with it. Some people could think of observability just application performance, right? Without thinking about the state of the underlying infrastructure that the applications run on top of, right? So I don't know. In my mind, when people talk about observability, it can mean so many different things. But there's always foundations that will need to be laid before you can get to that utopia of just tracking application user experience, for example. Knowing that the infrastructure that you have underneath is rock solid, and a lot of companies aren't there yet. I know a lot of people want to be, and sometimes think they are, but for a lot of people that we see, they're not. I know that sounds a bit damning, but it's there may be distributed systems, a whole load of different platforms that may give them some information and some validation, but as an overall stitching together, people, a lot of companies have got a long way to go to get there.
Yeah, which leads us nicely on to the next question for you chaps, which is what are the common pitfalls that your customers are facing when it comes to gaining insights, visibility, and the utopia of observability, as we just discussed there, and how would you recommend countering them? Joe?
So I'd say, following on from Nick's point there, it is fair to say that infrastructure these days is complex. It is complicated. You're taking, you've got all sorts. You've got a range of connectivity options. You've got colos. You've got people coming in from home. You've got SD-WAN. You've got something as a service. Everything is distributed. So I guess when you take, if you're taking those services on, if you're taking those functions on, in the interest of supporting the business you work for, I suppose the first thing is, how would I go about troubleshooting this when it goes wrong? How would if I'm taking something on and there are SLAs associated with it, how do I guarantee I can measure those SLAs so I can go to that service provider in the fullness of time and say, look, you're not delivering on those. You might be measuring them, but I'm measuring them, and I can see you're not. So think about what might go wrong at an early outset, and then perhaps invest wisely. How would you, and then design wisely, how would you troubleshoot things? Where would I want to be able to acquire data from to be able to enable me to troubleshoot when things and if things go wrong? I suppose that's probably the starting point. Don't design with let's just let's just deliver a technology in mind. Let's try and deliver a solution that is a long-lived solution.
Yep.
And that can integrate with some of the legacy platforms I have as well. I think the outset is think about when things go wrong.
Yeah.
That's right, because inevitably
they will go
They
wrong.
will.
That's
No,
because
true.
you've got an engineering background,
Well,
Joe.
that's-
That goes back to that being burnt reference,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're right, being burnt.
Yeah. And I think what both of you have said is actually understanding what that baseline is. You know, like what we see all too often is, you know, customers have got the best ambition to go ahead and deploy a particular solution, and they'll go ahead. In fact, one of our mutual customers at the moment, their approach has been, well, you know, we're going to go to each of the application owners. We're going to tell them to re-architect their application with ACI, copy it over, and then we'll switch it off as when, you know, like we can prove that it works, you know. And a lot of it comes down to people process, you know, like understanding the baseline, having the people process and the organization fully behind you and that strategy that you're taking.
Yeah.
But what we see with a lot of the customers that we talk to is that, you know, knowledge is very much still very siloed. Yeah? So someone will go ahead and implement a vision and strategy, and either that partner will leave that organization or that individual will leave. So all that knowledge is completely gone as well. And then what naturally happens is there's a fear of change, a fear of updating and, you know, like carrying out what should be fairly rudimental tasks, which might be just upgrades. I'm shrugging my shoulders like it's a simple thing to do, but it's not.
Just flick the switch.
Yeah,
That's
just
what
flick the
PM
switch.
told me
That's
once.
all it
Just
is.
flick the
Just
switch.
flick the switch. That's it. It's easy.
Just roll back.
Just roll back. Yeah, but you know, baselining is so important, and actually knowing what you've got, and that's such a hard job to actually go and do. Now, if you can take that one step further and actually have some of those observability capabilities where you can get that baseline done and created using, you know, tools, then fantastic. But that's what we're seeing.
Good. Do you want to add to that, Nick?
It's common pitfalls, right?
Yeah.
That was a question. Yeah. I think a lot been covered. I think number one is requirements.
Yeah.
Most customers don't have requirements. They will come and be interested in a product. Okay, I've seen this product. You know, it does X, Y, Z. It looks brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you say, "What problem do you want to fix?" And most of them will say, "I don't know. What does it do?"
Yeah.
You know, people don't always have a clear vision of what is it they need to do and how they want to do it. So a lack of requirements would probably be a big one for me, you know, tied to use cases.
Yep.
And then probably something else, that kind of, you got my mind ticking, Joe. It's in terms of customers don't always, you could go and buy a load of products and turn them on. But unless you understand the data that's being generated, you're going to end up with more of a problem. You have to know what things mean. So when you see patterns change in an environment, or you see anomalies, you know, raised by an eye as an example, you need to know what does that mean. You can't just have there's people staring at the screen going, "Oh, great, I've got all of this information. Now, what do I do?" The longer term goal is to have all of that information and be able to action it. Right, so you have all of these anomalies, or whatever it is, or this data that's being generated, telling you how things are performing. But the utopia would be you could take that and go and action something off the back of it.
Correct.
But unless you know what this data means, you're never going to know what to do with it. So you can't just turn on, you know, applications and just expect everything to work, right?
Yeah.
You still need to apply your own business logic to it in terms of, right, okay, this is what this means. So that is implying that something is going on, and therefore I might need to do this. So there's a lot of, I don't know, an analysis that needs to be done to really understand the kind of content that's being created.
It's in the context of your local. Local context, really.
Yeah, you've got to have kind of, you know, specialists look at this stuff and think, okay, right, I've got all of this data, but there's no point even collecting the data unless you're going to do something with it, right?
Yeah.
It's just pointless.
Yeah.
So is it probably fair to say that data in terms of collection is a bit like a tap, right? You can turn it on, you can turn it off, but the more you turn it on, the more data you're going to get, and the more stuff you got to deal with. So you want to turn it on gradually and fix the problem or fix the data, triage the data to get to where you want before you move to the next stage. Is that a fair assumption?
You've got to build on it, right? You can't just go, okay, I'm going to, again, flick the switch. You've got to really, it's a journey. You've got to evolve with it. You've got to lay the foundations in place and work through different use cases. But just the last thing I'd probably say about kind of common pitfalls is people don't prioritise this stuff enough. Right? The budgets all get discovered after major outages. That's why, like, someone has a car crash, they're going to up their insurance premium, aren't they? Going to add on a few extra things, or break down services or whatever on top. People don't prioritise it enough, and I think the way the industry's going, there's more of a requirement for management or whoever you want to call it to make sure that their backside is covered.
Hence, that's what I was kind of alluding to with prepare for the worst.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Think about what's going to happen when things go wrong, and how are we going to help solve that. But you're right, probably at a senior level.
Yeah.
Where's our backup plan here?
Yeah, you can't be in a position where someone's asked you a question and you've not got the answers.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a week. I'll go through look through the kind of like syslog index and see if I can correlate a few messages from 4 days ago. No, you need the answer now.
Yeah.
You just need it normalised. There you go. You got a question? Brilliant. I got the answer.
But also
Boom.
proactively test that.
Yeah.
Works in
It's
the
a good
same way.
shout.
Yeah.
Good shout.
Yeah, I think there was an interesting thing about chaos engineering that I heard some event somewhere, and they spoke about, like you say, Joe, testing and stuff like that, and how you want to break stuff to see what happens, right? And you can only do that if you're confident in knowing that you're going to get the information out.
Yeah.
I'm
Go-
not advocating breaking stuff, but
you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelette, right?
Going back to the pitfalls. Going back to the pitfalls, Jimbo. I suppose one for you guys, probably more than Jimbo. Do you feel that customers are overwhelmed with the term observability? Do you think, we're talking about pitfalls, do you think it's like too much to consume? The people say, there's all of this stuff, there's all of these words, I don't know where to start.
Yeah. So from our perspective, you know, in the area that I work at, from an insight standpoint, you know, what we've been able to provide our customers is a huge amount of data and insights that they've never had before. Yeah. So for them, this is great, because whenever there's been a problem now, or whenever there is a problem, they're able to prove that actually the problem isn't the network, it's actually, you know, a change that's occurred to an application that is, and that might be through the integration that we've done with App Dynamics. So from our perspective, what we're giving them is something that they've never had before. Now, as you can appreciate, over a period of time, as Cisco make further and further investments, there's going to be lots more data that's going to be coming to them. And I know that, you know, at Jonathan's level, so this is way above my head, there is a plan to offer some kind of standardization, which is taking place. But, you know, for us, Nexus Dashboard and Nexus Dashboard Insights is giving customers that insight and visibility that they've never had. So for us, right now, it's great. Yeah.
Good area to be in.
Yeah.
Good.
Joe,
You got anything else to add on that?
do you think people get scared? Do you think people hear the term and just kind of feel overwhelmed and panic without being able to break it down into kind of components that they can build on?
I think probably you touch the customers a little bit more than I do. You see it slightly differently. My perspective, I think, is that the customers are busy just keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
And being able to introduce new. I mean, it's all what's the term? It's like changing a wheel while you're still driving, kind of thing. You kind of. I feel for people in the situation where they are just trying to keep the lights on at the same time they're trying to introduce new things. They've almost got to pause. Almost pause operations, bring some new functionality and allow them to start going again at full speed.
Yeah.
But in terms of observability, I suppose we've been playing in that game for quite a while. We call it visibility, so we see it in a slightly different perspective than the customer does. But yeah, I can appreciate it's certainly a challenge for the customers.
I think it comes down to your point, though. You know, understanding the requirements, because you know there are lots of tools that are out there, and they're tools that are probably having a very siloed approach within that organization. So, in the ideal scenario, the customers would sit down together and actually understand what are the business requirements. To your point, yeah, what are we trying to achieve? What does great look like? And actually, can we get to a point whereby we are, the network or the team that we're in, we're providing a service. We're a service provider back into the business rather than us being seen as a bit of a hindrance. And I think we as a vendor, we'll collectively as vendors, we'll go in and we'll say, look, we've got a great solution for you, but does it fit their requirements? It'd be great if, we were to work with an organization to say, this is what we're trying to do, this is what we're trying to achieve, and ultimately we can go in there and provide a solution that might align or it might not.
Yeah.
I think that's something that NetScout are reasonably good at, because we're very, Cisco obviously broad, we're very focused in what we do, and we like to think we're pretty good at it, but there are other people, other partners within the ecosystem in an organization's IT architecture that we can integrate with quite nicely. There might be some APIs from Cisco, certainly APIs from ServiceNow and the like, and F5. We do some quite nice integration to sit within the wider ecosystem.
Yep.
Splunk, if everyone's using Splunk for big data lake, that type of stuff. And I guess I don't use the term, well, I'm going to use it now, best of breed, but that's kind of our focus is purely on gaining intelligence from packets. But going back to the customer requirements, we might not meet some of them, but we can certainly deliver on the packet collection specific bits and make it easier for them to do it. That's take a weight off their mind, if you like.
Yeah, indeed.
Nice. All right then. Well, I guess on to our final question, and this one's going to be a bit wider, I suppose, for you guys to elaborate on.
When do we do a poll? Do we do a?
The polls have been running in the background.
They've been going.
They've been going in the background. Don't you panic.
See the results of those polls.
Yeah,
I should be able to, but I've been kicked out of WebEx and I can't get back in. So I was playing it smooth, Joe. Thanks.
Sorry, my mistake.
So
not to invite me on this.
Exactly,
he's banned.
yeah.
No.
He's been drawing pictures. Trying to look important.
So I guess question 3 for you chaps is where have you seen customers do it well? What did that journey look like, and what were their outcomes that I think you took away and said, you know what, this is what successful looks like? Have you got any experiences in that?
So what does good look like?
Yeah.
So I've recently worked with a large UK organisation where they have implemented 2 new on-prem data centres with some cloud connectivity, and from day one they architected monitoring in. And it was, I say from day one that there were a number of programs of work, but one of them was specifically focused on tooling, and the data center or the applications that sit on top of the data center were not allowed to go into full production mode without having some monitoring capability in there. That's sensible. That's a sensible approach. Day one, obviously applications weren't working very well, so immediately they reached for the toolbox, found some problems. I mean, things like we were talking about services earlier. Everyone's consuming a service such as DNS. Why have I got DNS servers sitting in one legacy estate with the latency of them being really high? And another estate being quite low, and actually, I'm actually consuming the DNS from the one where the latency is poor. Well, we want to change that around, but also we want to make sure that we can fix that latency problem. So from day one, they were putting the servers into production, and they were troubleshooting using the monitoring they put in place. So what does good look like? That's probably quite a good story, to be perfectly honest. I've got plenty more.
And were they happy? Did they feel that they got value out of that?
I think straight away they recognised it. But did they say, "Oh, we've done a great job here"? No, because that's the norm.
That's the norm.
That's what the norm is.
You expected to do a good job, right?
Yeah. I don't think they didn't pat themselves on the shoulder. They're living up to their own expectations. So it's good.
Yeah. From our perspective, one of the customers that we've been working with, they had a mandate, as I said earlier, to become to ensure that the network team was ultimately delivering a service to the business, and they were seen as a service provider in their own right. So what they did was they went ahead and they ensured that they had a unified security policy with ACI. They implemented it the way they should have implemented. They went down the route of driving full automation with Ansible. So ultimately, as when new applications were being launched, those were actually integrated in as part of the wider framework, all fronted by a ServiceNow. what we're doing now is with this one particular organisation is, it's still that they were still getting to a point though whereby they weren't getting the visibility or the insights as to what was traversing across their environment. So we're working with them, and actually we've done a POV to a point where they're actually going ahead to implement next dashboard insights, so they can now get the visibility and the insights as to what's traversing across their network. Yeah, so at any one time, if there is an instance or if there is an outage, they're able to quickly understand what has caused it. What is the limiting factor within their network? Yeah, so it's really putting them back in control. And for us, this has been, a huge step in the direction that they want to, get to. Yeah.
Good. Nick, do you have anything to add to that?
What does good look like?
Yeah.
Well, I have seen some customers. I'm going to strip it right back away from products for a second and just say, good. It doesn't have to mean overly complex and heavy. Not heavy. Significant kind of investment, right? People don't have to spend a lot of money to do some things well, right? You can still do something very cheaply, but do it well and make it relevant to the business. So we've seen customers, even just with basic existing monitoring tools, really, I'm not trying to kind of advocate old kind of tools, but just working backwards from the requirements, right? Just taking a data set and making it relevant to their own business need. Enriching some kind of data with business context messaging, just to take a basic message and be able to kind of enrich it with more information that's relevant to them, right? I think where we want to get to is probably a stage where we can use a lot of products to do a lot of the heavy lifting, right? Kind of NI is an amazing tool. It produces so much content. No one could ever create that themselves without taking years and spending millions and millions of pounds, right? But it's a case of kind of for me, what good looks like would be a case of using something kind of NetScout related, Cisco related, getting all of the heavy lifting done, but still applying the individual company's logic to the data that those products create, right? Because no vendor can ever fix that problem. Cisco, NetScout, you could never code applications in a way that gives every business their own specific business needs, right? You've got to prioritize certain use cases and code towards it, but they're a large component, but the kind of special sauce on top is the bit that can really help take an amazing product and just kind of elevate it even more. And that doesn't have to be complex, right? It comes back to the use cases, understanding what the anomalies or faults, whatever's being raised, and making that relevant. I think that's what, for me, good looks like.
Yeah.
Cool. And what would, if you had to pick one thing each in terms of how people can look to start their journey, what would be the one thing that you would recommend to people to start on their journey towards visibility, observability, insights, whatever it is they need to do to get there? What one thing would you choose? And I guess this makes it easier for whoever goes first.
I would say I'm going first.
Straight in there.
Straight in there.
So from my perspective, is they've got to have a partner that is with them on the journey throughout that whole project, yeah, and actually more so, yeah. So when you start an outcome that you're trying to achieve, you've got to be in a point whereby you mutually you both understand the requirements, you both understand the end goal, yeah, and the customer and the partner are able to hit that trajectory and the milestones. And it might be working with multiple vendors, yeah, one vendor but multiple vendors, but the outcome needs to be clear, it needs to be defined, and it needs to be ultimately aligned, yeah. And I'm not saying it because I'm sat with you guys, but there's so many great examples of you working with customers, and we as Cisco have come in at point parts of it to provide some additional value add wherever it's needed, but whenever we've met with any of your customers, it's been fantastic, and clear-cut example of that.
Yeah, thank you. Jack?
I'm trying to think. I did make a note about this, but
Shall I move to Nick?
Go on, Nick.
It goes back. I sound like a just banging the same drum, but it goes back to the requirements again, right? It's and again, the data's got to mean something. So there's no point in creating just a load of data and not doing anything with it. You may as well just stay in bed, right? So I would probably say, in terms of how to get started, the requirements clearly defined, which is tough going. It shouldn't be, but unfortunately is. But B, just pick 5 use cases, right? This information is intended to make everyone's lives easier, right? To assure the state of the infrastructure, just to give confidence that things are working as expected. But pick just 5 use cases of things that traditionally take a lot of time, and use tools to validate that. And that doesn't just mean, okay, give me a file and just send it into an index or a data lake somewhere, never to be seen again. Make it available, make it consumable on a dashboard. Whatever that is, make it consumable so that those 5 use cases take seconds to do. People can go proactively and just find the data, right? They've not got to go and do anything, digging around, get the data for 5 use cases, make it available, so that literally load a window, there's the result, right? It's not, okay, well, I've got to stitch this bit of information over here with this bit of information. No. Munge it together, do whatever you need to do to make that, those 5 use cases and the 5 time-consuming use cases, or an effort use cases, just achieve them, right? Pick them, make it on a sexy dashboard somewhere so that people can spend their, 9 hours, 10 hours a day, whatever, doing more interesting stuff. The data has to provide value, doesn't it? There's no point just doing it and just leaving it somewhere. It's got to be.
Goes back to that mean time to knowledge thing I said earlier. It's if you can present it in a way that's easily consumable, then you reduce the time to learn about what's going on across your network. So I suppose Nick's covered off from a technical perspective-ish, partner perspective, but I guess if I was taking a role I've had in the past, if I was to approach it now, again, I'd probably be looking to ensure senior management buy-in and appreciation of what we're trying to achieve. And
That's a good one, Joe.
That is a good
That is a very good one.
I'll save the best till last.
You just trumped us. You've been lying in stealth.
So I think that's. I suppose we talked at the outset about setting. What is it a business wants out of this kind of thing? Observability. Well, let's look at some outcomes and let's stress those outcomes up and make sure that senior management, budget holders and the like are aware of the outcomes we're trying to achieve and how observability or visibility can help deliver those outcomes.
Yeah, that's a great show.
Cool, fantastic. Well, I think, guys, that is a wrap for today. You've all done expertly well. So I just want to thank all of you for coming along today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure the audience have had quite an insightful event, to be fair. And the information, or the data, I suppose, that they've got out of this should hopefully give them a good avenue to start pursuing their next steps towards their observability plans. And I suppose out of the session, I think for me, listening into you guys talk about what it is and how the challenges or the importance and the outcomes are playing a big part in this industry. I think from me, my biggest takeaways is that the people processes, the buy-in, and the skill set or the products and the people around it are vastly important for success. I think is probably my takeaway from that. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, Raghav.
I want to keep going.
You.
I'll just clear the calendar.
Unfortunately, you can't. So we're going to finish up. We can go for a bite to eat afterwards. I wanted to say pint, but I might get a few Alcoholic Anonymous messages afterwards. So thank you everyone again for joining us. I hope the audience enjoyed the session. I hope everyone's participated in the polls, and we'll put some stuff out on the results of those polls afterwards. And then obviously a call to action for ourselves, I suppose a bit of a plug for Best Path here, is that we do have the ability to come in and provide some assessment on your next step. So Joe kind of alluded to it earlier on about how you take that from the outset and move that onwards. So we do have a solution available for customers to reach out and get in touch, and we will help you on that journey to success, I suppose, in what it might look like for you. So once again, thank you everyone for joining, and I hope everyone has a good day, and
See you on the next one.
see you on the next one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.